What if Doctor Who hadn't been axed in 1989? That's something many have tried to get at, and now it's my turn. I'll be going through this concept at the rate of one season per episode. These videos are based on information released by the BBC and everything said by Andrew Cartmel, J&T, Sylvester McCoy, Ben Aaronovitch, and some other people. Doctor Who magazine 255, that issue from 1997 about what if Doctor Who wasn't axed, stories from the Virgin New Adventures and Big Finish, with a lot, and I mean a lot, of guesswork. So, Season 31 follows directly on from the Dark Dimension. More on that later. Again, the only real change to the title sequence includes the colour scheme is now blue. The Suicide Expedition. Before we go into the titles and synopsis, I need to go through a brief introduction. This story is unusual because Griffiths isn't really in it. It picks off where the Dark Dimension ends, with a scene similar to the Five Doctors, but the 6th Doctor walks into the wrong TARDIS, so the adventure follows the 6th Doctor, Bernice and Henrik. It's the 51st century and the 6th Doctor, Bernice and Henrik, arrive in an abandoned museum about an expedition which went horribly wrong. The museum is toured by being plugged into a virtual reality unit and you get to experience and interact with the expedition. But one thing they don't know, what happens in virtual reality affects your outside body, so if you die on the expedition, you die in real life. This story works as the last adventure for the 6th Doctor, as Garwood thought this would be necessary. It turns out that the Rani is controlling the museum and kills the Doctor, transporting him into his TARDIS, meeting with Mel, with Griffiths' Doctor, returning to Bernice and Henrik. It's produced as a one-off and gives the 6th Doctor a good send-off. The year is 2194, 30 years since the Doctor defeated the Dalek invasion of Earth, and Susan Foreman lives a very normal life as she has become part of the time. However, she has spent her whole life waiting for her grandfather to return, and she has given up hope. That is until a blue police box arrives on her doorstep. Meanwhile, a robot army of knights are heading towards Earth, and they'll be there by nightfall. This story sees the return of Susan after a brief reappearance in the 30th. It also sees the Doctor meeting her again and what she has done with her life. It also explores a fantasy element to the show. There were once a race of body snatchers that were wiped out millions of years ago on Earth. Millions of years later they rise again, taking the bodies of the dead. People think they're going crazy seeing their dead loved ones walking around the streets with a completely different personality. When the Doctor, Bernice, Henrik and Susan arrive, things can only go from bad to worse. This story sees Susan travelling with the trio for the next 3 stories. It also explores how sometimes you're not yourself and takes it literally, also explores people's grief for their dead loved ones and how that's either good or bad. When Susan lived on Earth between 2164 and 2194, she at one point lived in a big house for a short while. She moved because it scared her. The Doctor, knowing about this, takes her there, but in the year 1994. What will they uncover about the history of this house? This story is very, very similar to Ghostlight, and nearly every element is the same, but it is a good horror story with lots of twists and turns and makes you feel very scared. After leaving the House of Terror, the Doctor, Bernice, Henrik and Susan set off on their next adventure. The Time Lords are not happy with the Doctor because he apparently rigged an election causing Romana not to be president. An insane dictator has taken Romana's place and wants the Doctor dead, or one of his 3 companions. This season rounds off with a 6-part Gallifrey story. The only problem people would have with it is that it is very politically heavy, and it features a very moustache-stroking type of villain. However, it adds more mystery to Gallifrey, while also showing how corrupt the High Council can be. Here is my views on what Season 31 could be like. Please go back and watch 27 through 30. I should be having Season 32 out by next Wednesday, but if it's later, I apologise.